challenges that we come across in cost allocations are of course numerous, and the larger the organization that we work with, the more interesting the challenge is, and also the more often we run into these challenges. And I'd like to speak to you about three of the main challenges that we see. One of is, and that's especially with larger organization, is that an organizational department or a part of the organization could actually have a cost allocation in itself. And I'll give you an example of IT. IT costing is a very hot topic at the moment, where you would usually say, okay, I try to get my cost allocated to my products and services. You could argue that an IT department itself ends with products and services as well. So you being, in a front office situation where you would use your Microsoft 365 or where you would use a certain built for purpose application for your specific business, that is serviced and that is being built by your IT department. And that in itself is already a product. It's only an internal product, but it is a product in itself. So having to build several cost allocation models for several different services internally is a very common thing. One of our clients, USPTO, they are using 6 models in itself to come to a fully cost allocation. The second challenge that we come across is that sometimes the organizations, especially when they are a little bit bigger, find it very difficult to get to allocate the cost to the granular level that they'd like to go to. So either to a certain department or all the way down to a certain product, and they feel like, oh, but I don't have a direct cause and effect relationship between my cost and the part that I like to allocate it towards. And therefore we always say, try to think of it from a multidimensional perspective. And what do we mean by a multidimensional perspective? Is that you could think of situations where you could actually allocate the cost towards without thinking already to the other dimensions. And I'll give you an example. Say that you have a marketing department that is doing a sort of brand awareness campaign for elderly people. Just a random example here. To allocate those costs of that campaign to a certain product is going to be very difficult for that marketing team because they don't exactly know it was a brand awareness campaign. However, if you think of it from a multidimensional perspective, then the dimension type of client, that could be a dimension, is very easy to allocate towards, because in this case, type of client is elderly people. And you could leave the whole product thing aside, because there are other cost elements that are easier to allocate directly to a product. And with a multidimensional approach, you can go through transactions and you'll get there. That is an approach. The last, but definitely not least challenge that I'd like to touch upon is the availability of data. Many of our clients in the beginning think, oh, but I don't have data about that, or the data is not sufficient, or the data is corrupt, or all kinds of data problems. And we see that more often than we'd like is, no, we first, that the people say to us, no, we first like to do a data cleansing program and then we'll start. We actually advocate the other way around. Please start with the data that you have, and you will see that it's not perfect, your first cost allocation model, but it's a good start, and it actually teaches you on what the best route to data cleansing would be, what the best route of data collection would be. Because once you've started to try to manage your organization through cost and then later on profitability, that's when you get the insights that teaches you on what kind of data you will need next. What if you get it wrong? What if you get it completely wrong? You did your cost allocation, but you made a mistake, or you haven't done it as sophisticated as it should be. What would happen? I can give you a funny example that we experienced with a client before they were using Cost Perform. Luckily, what happened is that they would use their cost allocation method to do a little bit of a check upon their logistical suppliers. The client that I'm talking about is a client that is right into the warehousing, so they would have a lot of products on stock in warehouses and then have a transportation company bring that to the different points of sales for them. And what they are trying to do in cost allocation, they were trying to allocate all the cost of the order picking, of the logistical routes, of the pallet sizes and everything. They were trying to allocate that towards every single route and therefore transaction that they were doing. But they were doing that already for like 2 or 3 years. But they wanted to get to a higher level of maturity. So what they've done, they actually built a very sophisticated, detailed cost allocation method that talked about spillage, that talked about like how many products can be in a case, how many cases can be on a pallet, how many pallets can we move in a month, really like detailed elements like that. And once they had built it, they actually calculated back what would we have expected to be the cost of our logistical suppliers that does the order picking, that does the transport from us. And what they had seen when they calculated back, that there was like over $600,000 in differences in what they theoretically thought that it should be and what they actually got invoiced by the logistical supplier. And when they confronted the logistical supplier with it, the logistical supplier, very generously said, oh, we made a mistake there. So it was not on purpose. We made a mistake there. And it actually saved them, indeed, over $600,000 just by getting this cost allocation right. So that's a very detailed example. But you could also think of a little bit granular situations. Just calculating the right way of getting cost from your IT, finance, HR department towards your products. If you do that wrong, then you can get very wrong decisions on which products and services are profitable and which are not. So if you're trying to put extra marketing or extra sales effort in certain products, maybe you're putting that sales effort and marketing effort on the wrong products, actually the loss-making products. So you want to make sure you have that right. Cost allocations are not only a managerial accounting view that you want to get on your companies by improving your company's performance. Sometimes it's very highly driven just by regulations. Think of a situation in a multinational that operates in different jurisdictions. And with different jurisdictions, we can think of different countries, but we could also think of different states. And all of these countries and states have different tax rules and different regulations. And these taxes are on sales taxes, but they can also be up on taxes for internal regulations and also, profit taxes. So by doing a proper cost allocation, transfer pricing in this sense, you want to make sure that everything you do around invoicing your own subsidiaries, you want to make sure that you optimize both your regulatory compliance, so you make sure that you have the right taxes, but that you also optimize your profitability statements. One of the items that I've seen very often is that you want to make sure that you will put your profit in a place where profit taxes are lowest. That's completely legal, but of course bound by regulations. Cost allocation and transfer pricing can play a very big part in that. The strategies and techniques that can be used by especially larger organizations to get these things right, cost allocations, is, I would say, the number one recommendation that I would give is use tooling. And of course, I'm super biased by being a tool vendor here, but even if you don't choose to use cost perform, please use tooling. Don't think that you can do this in Excel, because what you want to be able to be doing is get a complete transparent view of all the cost allocations that you make within your organization. And that is just not only intercompany pricing that you're doing, but also getting these cost allocations from your general ledger, from the top of your company down to your products and services. And when you are at the products and services, you want to make sure that you are able, not only to yourself, but you are able to explain in a very transparent and visual way, why is this service so costly, or has this X cost? What cost does it comprise, that you can find your way back to the cost that you had at the top of your company. And that's my recommendation number one, use tooling. Then my second recommendation that I would give even a fool with a tool is still a fool, because what I would say, set your goals. What do you want to achieve with this cost allocation? Is it indeed a regulatory compliance thing that you're trying to achieve? Is it a better grip on cost and performance from a managerial point of view? It could be both at the same time, but set these goals, because that really determines on how you would use tooling, or if you don't use tooling, how you will do this in practice for yourself. Then last but not least is just get started. Get started to get this right. Don't get into this analysis paralysis where you think, oh, I first need the data, and be aware that this is a maturity journey, that it's not a problem that you start relatively easy, but you will grow towards that maturity journey. Most of our clients have been with us over 10 years, and we've seen the growth over that client's in maturity. And we believe that that's the case for everybody.